career change is scary. Oftentimes, you don't know what to do. You don't know what to say. I want to stress that a lot of other people feel the same way. There's an opportunity that I think is really, really interesting that more people should know about in telehealth nursing.
Let's start by talking about your current role at the healthcare company Row. What do you do as the medical operations manager at the healthcare company Row?
Super happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Row is a direct to patient company that works on a number of different conditions and helps to bridge the gap between patients and providers and access to healthcare by way of a platform where patients can see providers of all types, nurse practitioners, and physicians via telemedicine. The main conditions that we treat are around men's health, women's health, skincare, and metabolic health, which is kind of like my main focus. My role within the medical operations team focuses on bridging our provider network. So we kind of have a full team of physicians, nurse practitioners, registered nurses who are privately contracted with the company and provide their services. We're really kind of seen as the operational and supportive team between that group of providers and tech side of things. We really work to help set up a lot of the workflows, the standard operating procedures, the training and the onboarding plans for all of the clinicians. And then we also work really closely with the technical team. So the product managers and engineering teams, designers to help develop the platform that our providers and patients work on so that it's really intuitive, that's fast and efficient. It makes for a better experience, happy providers, happy patients.
I see more tech healthcare startups slash companies, and a lot of nurses and nurse practitioners are starting to work in that environment in telemedicine. You studied psychology in undergrad, you went back for nursing school, and then you worked in senior living facility, worked in med surge, and then transitioned to your current role. I was wondering what helped you in each transition slash job change.
I have a non-traditional kind of path to nursing and path to where I'm at now. I was in school pre-med, wanted to do medical school. At some point, I also got into neuroscience research. My minor was neuroscience at school. Did a little bit of research and then realized I also research academia maybe wasn't my main interest. And I had the goal right out of college that I wanted to work in New York. I was like, I'm going to look for any job. If it's not research, I like interfacing with people. I like communications and things like that. And I wanted to just get into the job market. So I chose anything. I went into advertising and marketing. So I worked at a big agency and I was like, oh, great. Like I'll be able to narrow my focus while I'm here in healthcare. I would love to do some kind of healthcare marketing or healthcare account management. So I was working on like with bigger clients, kind of adjacent to social media. A lot of my projects were focused on social media marketing. And then after a while, I was jumped within the same agency to different positions between media planning, media buying. I'm getting further and further away from the purpose. Like I'm working with people now, which is what I kind of wanted to do. I don't have a healthcare client yet. Maybe I just have to go right to the source. I could go back and do nursing, direct to patient care, and really make an impact that way. And then at that point, my plan is to look into advanced practice nursing, maybe bring in the psych aspect that I still was interested in, even though I didn't pursue it. Did nursing school at NYU. Throughout that time, I also want to keep making money. So one of my friends who I had made through work, her fiance was working at a cloud security company, really small startup. We're looking for someone who's just in school right now to help with a little bit of freelance work. And the freelance work was recruiting. I don't have a ton of experience in recruiting, but I'm in my marketing role, in my advertising role, it's all relationship building. And ultimately, there's a little bit of sales in it too. You have to kind of be able to have this conversation, judge a person, make that assessment, and then deliver results and kind of catch them. So I was like, this will be fun to do on the side. It's a startup. I'm a one-person team. I'll just build up my own recruiting process. And this was all like a way for me while I was doing a lot of my studying, a lot of my nursing work to almost flex a different part of my brain. This is valuable skill, maybe a hobby that was also paid, but that can help me in my future. I don't know how exactly, but it will be something that I can speak to. I kind of like maintained that through nursing school, helping to do this recruiting work, talk to people, get them hired, support them through this journey and have those negotiations. So that's another thing that I also developed. After that, I took my NCLEX, went right into assisted living, community nurse for a little bit. And then I switched that to part-time. And then I started working full-time at a med surg role, but I was like a float pool nurse. New nurse, float pool, doing this community nursing on the side. As you can tell, like I tend to be like the type of person that wants to do a ton of different things or at least try a bunch of different things because it helps me figure out where my passion is or where my skills are. Thrown right into this float pool, which is really tough as a new grad nurse
For sure.
because you never know what's going on. But I was starting to notice I've been in these previous situations at my other jobs where I have to just figure it out on my own. I have to adapt. And a lot of the same qualities and same skills, even though applied different ways, you were starting to see these threads across my experiences. I was then going into two different types of nursing, inpatient, float pool nurse, and also kind of community nursing on the side. And then COVID hit like crazy. So I was floated to a lot of different COVID units. And at some point, okay, I'm running in this one direction and I haven't really taken a step to consider really what I want to do or maybe like what the next step is. All I know is I'm just kind of putting one foot in front of the other, running really fast. During COVID, it really gave me a chance to take a step back and be like, okay, like what do I really like? Is inpatient nursing it? I don't think so. Is it advanced practice nursing it? Should I go back to school? And I also was like, I don't think so. I remember my experience interacting with people and having these experiences almost in a more business sense. For a while, I considered a master's in nursing administration. Was the other angle I was considering for a bit. Okay, I want to think about profession of nursing again and kind of rethink what are the other options. So I had to do a lot of research because as you said, you're funneled like sometimes right out of school to being, oh, this is like the option. You got to cut your teeth. You got to get your experience and then you can see other telehealth options or other outpatient options. But I don't think that's necessarily true. It requires a lot of research and a lot of proactive conversations and actions. I looked into nurse consulting. I looked into these medical operations roles, experiences where even if I didn't have a super compelling business background and not an extensive nursing career. What do I need to do personally to make myself actual applicant for these roles? So I had to do a lot of massaging to my resume, to my cover letters, and my interviewing style. I had to make that story and say I am valuable for these reasons because I did recruiting for a little bit. I know how to talk to people. I know how to think this way strategically. Ultimately, nursing sets you up for everything because you have to make decisions on the fly. You have to be decisive. I think somebody saw my resume on LinkedIn. I set up my resume for a consulting role or an operations role. They reached out to me. What my role at Roe started out as was within medical operations, I was to build out a nursing team. So you'll be in charge of not only the recruiting of the nurses, but also the onboarding, the training, and the team setup. So I was like, oh, I worked on a nursing team. I did a little bit of recruiting. I can figure this out. 70% of it was also just selling myself. That's how I kind of ended up.
I wanted to know, how did you sell yourself? How did you make yourself a stronger candidate when transitioning from patient-facing role to business side of healthcare? I'm similar way that if I'm curious about something, I have to do it. And I need to know whether this is a good fit for me. And I feel like you are similar in that you try different things and passions that you had.
I think key decision I also had to make was when I was working in the COVID unit as a nurse in the hospital. One, do I want to stay in patient care? So actually, one of the opportunities at Roe was to be a nurse on the platform, but telehealth nurse. Or there was the role where I wouldn't be a practicing nurse, but I'd build out that team and it'd be a little bit more business focused. I could have gone two ways. Do I want to keep practicing? Telehealth might be interesting, or is my interest more in this other way where I'd have to pivot? I'd have to probably sell myself harder because it is a different role, but by making that decision, I did step away from like direct patient care and nursing practice, but it helped me because I was like, oh, I can touch on this skill. Really, nursing is very, very flexible and it's all in how you present it because there's so many challenges to it day to day that people don't understand if they're not in it. that are very adaptable. Just time management, people management,
Oh,
relationship
yeah.
management, critical thinking. They kind of feel like buzzwords sometimes, but in the hospital, people don't realize that they do it every single day to like the highest degree. It's all opportunities to sell yourself.
Absolutely. It sounds like you really looked into inside of you. What are you really wanting to do and really sit down and think about it? And maybe COVID became the opportunity for you to reflect on yourself. As you said, as a nurse, when taking care of patient, we wear so many hats and we develop so many skills without knowing. Like really reflecting on what am I really doing? What am I really honing on? Like will help also make that decision too if they want to make a career change. Even before you decided to become a nurse, you had a lot of social media management strategies and marketing experience. How do you think, looking back, those experience helped you as a nurse and in your current role as an operations manager?
It was less social media management, it was more social media strategy. What I can take from that experience working at an ad company in social media marketing was the relationship building. And also, I will say that caveat, social media is completely different now. It is like evolving so fast. But the key takeaway, I think, from that social media marketing experience and advertising experience was how to communicate with clients, how to be in, as you say, like a corporate environment. It's different from a hospital. A lot of it is being proactive about setting up meetings with people who may be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, or just like in a different team to further yourself. You had to do that a lot. A lot of people I would notice setting up random meetings, just coffee chats or something with people, whether they're internal or external, to learn more about them, to set up that relationship. And sometimes with an ulterior motive to be like, oh, I want to see where this could advance me. It sounds a little bit impersonal, maybe, but I think that that is something that kind of ties into the business sense is just seeing where the opportunity is. And a lot of that is relationship. So within working at like an ad agency in social media, it's not less the social media itself at the job itself. It was everything else. Like what I took from that was probably the fact that talking with managers or talking with friends of friends to be like, oh, like what do you do? Tell me about it. What interests you? And then they start to think of you and for other opportunities and stuff. That carries over everywhere. In nursing too, I think when you're like, oh, I want to see other opportunities. You set up time with other nurses or other managers to kind of see what the opportunities are there. And then they think of you.
Right. Who do you think fits in the business world? Do you think there is a personality or is this something that you can build on?
I think that anybody can fit into it. It's just a matter of if you like it or not. Healthcare is a business to a certain degree too, a business of managing yourself, which is kind of corny, but if you're looking to make the pivot to more of a company, you still always have to like sell yourself and you still have to make yourself
Right.
valuable. It's maybe less in your literal skills, like as a nurse, like you show up, you do the work, but it's more in the soft skills. If you're looking to pivot into something more technical, obviously you learn those skills and market that. But I think anyone can be in business, anyone can learn that, but it really is something you have to want, right? I wanted to pivot. I wanted to be in this Monday through Friday, usually not usually into weekends too. You have that trade-off. You probably have different schedule, different expectations, different coworker types, and different structures that you have to get used to. But I think really anyone can learn to do it. It's not difficult. It's what keeps you there, right? If I make the decision from nursing to pivot into business or to working at a tech company, it's very different. It requires a lot of work. If you're going to make that investment and make that decision, know what you're getting into. It's more on the person's desire rather than their skills, actually, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was an answer that I didn't think about, but that is very true. When you want to make a career change, like you think about like a lot of things that will change in your life, and a lot of nurses like that stability in 12-hour shifts. But also, as you said, you need to understand that there will be other sacrifices that you'll
Hmm.
have to make, but you'll have to want to make a change. or you're not going to enjoy it. I want to ask about the income projection. When
Mhm.
comparing inpatient nursing to working in a healthcare tech company, what does that income projection look like in the long run?
This is a really good question. This is also really interesting because, again, as I mentioned, when I started at Roe, my role was partially recruiting. I was actually recruiting telehealth nurses. There's an opportunity that I think is really, really interesting that more people should know about in telehealth nursing, looking for these companies, looking for these platforms where you are still delivering patient care, but obviously the schedule is different. Obviously, you're working with a system, like you have to be, to some degree, pretty technically savvy and adaptable to a lot of change. There's another opportunity in more of an operations or business side, a technical side, if you're interested in that. Financially, what it also ties to is your schedule. Typically in telehealth and typically in more of a business side, you're not doing shift work. You're not working 12s or 10s. It's a little bit more consistent and it's more of a set 9 to 5-ish. You can work overtime. You can literally just have to stay on for an assignment or a project or something like that where you have to work later. With like the benefits added on, especially in companies, if you talk options, stock options, or actual shares, that's also another consideration. Long term, when I looked at the side by side options and the benefits that I was looking for, I also was relocating to a new city. I was kind of being in New York. Obviously, the financial considerations and the pay are a pretty big chunk. Long term, I saw more opportunity in the business side to pivot away from a shift nursing role and also the layer of your emotional and physical toll. I personally came from a nursing position that was really physically taxing. I was working night shift and I was working 3 nights a week. It wasn't worth it for me, even though the pay was competitive. My calculations, I thought I have unlimited PTO at my company. I have all of these benefits. I have probably a better social life, a regular sleep schedule, and comparable pay that I can negotiate. That's where I think I saw a lot more flexibility and opportunity.
The emotional and the physical toll. All the nurses have to think about it when they think about bedside nursing for
Hmm.
many years, because that's going to add up. I hear what you're saying. There was a time that I had healthcare consultants who were nurses talk about the salaries and how they have to make salary cut when they start as a
Hmm.
consultant from a registered nurse, but in the long run, there's no actual glass ceiling in consulting. That's why they made that
Exactly.
pivot and they were happy about that.
I would 100% agree with that. I'll also say that my nursing experience was kind of an extreme. There's levels, right? I could have looked for other nursing roles, just days or more consistent. They're outpatient, you can be 4 or 5 days a week. Also, considering the fact that bedside nurses are in high demand right now, they have a lot of signing bonus, that relocation bonuses. But at a more corporate setting, even if it were a consulting role, an operations role, the cut is, in my opinion, worth it. And again, like what I also want to stress is the opportunity to talk with potential employers about that stock options. That is always another resource and another
Mhm.
income source that you can negotiate if it's an option on the table that you don't really have in bedside nursing or in a hospital setting. When I think also about the potential burnout, I can maintain this position and pivot inward, maybe switch roles within the company if I have some burnout, or I can use my current experience to pivot to another company. I just see more negotiating opportunities, and with negotiating opportunities, there's more money. I think in nursing, it's a little bit more regimented. It's a little bit more based on years of experience and kind of what their competition is.
When you say stock option, can you explain what that means?
So it depends on the company. If it's a private company, sometimes it comes in a number of different formats. It can be RSUs, restricted share units, or it could be exactly what it is, options. I would really, really highly encourage actually for all of your viewers to, that is an area of personal finance to like really do a lot of research and investment. It would be part of signing package. Some of the companies that I interviewed with or spoke with, they offer you a salary, potentially a signing bonus if you can negotiate it, and then a set of options sometimes, or a set of like RSUs. It kind of is tied to the company's performance and the company's opportunity to potentially IPO or sell. And that is opportunity for more money. That again, not only keeps you incentivized with the company and ties you to their success that you're really invested, but also it's a helpful bargaining piece. Maybe the salary they're offering is a little bit lower, but if you have competitive or great stock offering to go with that, is something definitely to consider. If it's at a public company, they're not options. It's actually stock in the company because it's public research in this area in stock options and RSUs and all of those.
So when a company becomes public, if you have that option, you have an option to exercise it or sell it. That can become a lot of value in the future.
Exactly. And how I look at it is I have a little bit more future security, right? If I can maintain that, or when I have like an exercise plan, I can start planning for my future.
I had no interest in personal finance
Me
even
neither.
a few years ago.
Same.
Really. How are you making financial decisions and investment?
This is a work in progress because like you, oh, I don't know that stuff. I could do my research. I could look into this, but I just don't have the time. But that is dumb because it's for yourself. It's for your future. I a few different blogs and I have a couple podcasts that I listen to, and this is a relatively new one. And I know that I have a long way to go. This is something that I am actively working on. I also have a friend of a friend who's more in the financial advising space that I've kind of tapped in. Again, relationship that came from one of my previous conversations or jobs where I reconnect with them at a later date to be, do you have a second to talk? I just actually want to ask you a few questions purely inquisitive, just kind of like a casual
Right.
situation, just to get their ideas. Apps that I use, I have my own portfolio that I kind of manage through work and through personal finances.
Is there anything that you would like to add?
Any kind of transition, any kind of career change is really scary and really daunting. Oftentimes, you don't know what to do, you don't know what to say, you don't know how to put yourself out there. I want to stress that a lot of other people feel the same way. Everyone's just kind of guessing at it, being on both the person who's embarking on that change, who is putting up those applications, and on the receiving end, reading a lot of these applications, kind of helping to make those decisions and seeing the potential. There's a way to present yourself. It's like repetition as well, learning from your mistakes, learning from other people, setting up those conversations. Sometimes the stress of making that decision will stop people altogether. Oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should make this change, this leap. And then they never do it. And that's one of the biggest hurdles. And then the other thing is, as I mentioned before, relationship building, informational interviews, just conversations with people, friends of friends. That seems annoying or difficult or tedious, but that is really impactful. People really remember the conversations that you had or the outreach or more than anything else. And you never know when one is going to turn into an opportunity. As a nurse, I think that there are so many things that you can speak to. Like there's actually like a lot of value in your experience that you can turn. I was dealing with this very difficult situation as explained by XYZ. And this is why I'd be a good option for this, or this is why I would know kind of how to handle this situation. That is experience and context that I think is relevant to only the people who have been in nursing. So that's valuable.
It was very encouraging. You see other people and their story is like very sugar coated. When you look at it from outside, like you see people's success. You don't know what kind of struggle that they went through. It's just scary and daunting, as you said. Nurses can become so many things and so many roles, and I think more people should know. There's a saying that I really like. You never know what you're doing now, how the dots will connect in the future. Now, as you said, keep networking, keep talking to people. If you have passion, like tell people, because you never know what kind of opportunity will come in your way.
I love that.
Dayna, if the audience wants to connect with you online, how can they do that?
Through my LinkedIn is probably the best way. I think that is probably my number one form of communication with anyone.